Okay, so I've updated, and so I'll start from the beginning and then we'll go over all the stuff. But again, this is just a quick review of what the CTA is going to be. So CTA consists of two parts. The first part is the 1,500 word, which is 4 to 6 pages, typed double space, not including any citations you quote you do that you're writing on a legal issue that you have to answer. So there are 5 questions that are possibly you could choose from. You choose one and you answer the legal question. So should youth be charged in a major with major indictable offenses? Should youth charged with major indictable offenses be tried in adult court? Should the government have the right to make all civil servants an essential service, hereby removing the right to collectively bargain with their employers? Should freedom of expression allow and support the publication of offensive materials such as pornography? Should governments place limits on the amount which individuals can sue each other in civil court? And should a constitution charge with the ideas and morals of society? Should a constitution charge with the ideas and morals of society, or a society, or the absolutes? So I gotta rephrase that question. That seems weird. Change with the should the constitution change with the ideas and morals of society, or are they absolute? So I've kind of broken down how I'm going to mark each one of those things, so you know there's part of it that you tell me which question you want and the focus of your question, enter the essay. So again, quickly, I know that I must focus on one of my 5 topics presented in the question and discuss my thesis statements with my teacher. That's me. I know that my essay should create and develop an argument that answers one of the 5 following questions. I know that I must create a clear, easy to understand thesis statement based on one of the topics in the question. Now my essay should have a minimum of 3 relevant and effective sources, which are books, periodicals, case studies, whatever, things like that, support my thesis statement, which means that you have to have materials there that you can use to make your argument, at least 3. You can have more. All right, the next one just tells me which one I'm going to give you if you're to answer one of these questions. So I check off the one that you're doing, and then I tell you if you answer the question. Use proper legal terminology. Use it's using 5 well-developed paragraphs using proper citations. 5 to 10 analytic format, which means looking at 5 to 10 citations or evidence you're going to use to back what you're saying throughout your essay. And you must create this essay using proper spelling and grammar, and again, a research process. For the short answer presentation, you'll do a 2 to 5 minute presentation on one of these following questions. Again, why is it important for the Constitution to be entrenched in law? Or what is a crime? Why have crimes changed over the decades? Or why is the concept of a guilty beyond a reasonable doubt an important part in determining the guilt and innocence of the accused? Or what are the alternatives to settling civil disputes in court? Why can't these alternatives provide a more satisfying resolution to court resolved civil disputes? Or explain the legal term reasonable person. Why is it an important concept in civil law? Or define the term consent as it pertains to the law. Why do you need consent to be free of civil responsibility? Or outline the advantages of an oral contract. Why does the court prefer to have contracts in writing? Okay, so answer one of those 7. And then it breaks down here. I know that my presentation must focus on one of the 7 per answer questions, a conversation. I know that I must create a PowerPoint presentation that is clear, easy to understand, and visually appealing. Now my presentation must include a case study or another type of evidence to support your position. I know that I must support my PowerPoint presentation by applying logical reasoning. And then the other parts are proper legal terminology. The presentation will last about 2 to 5 minutes and should keep my attention. And your proper presentation must use proper spelling and grammar, and again, the research process. So let's talk about the essay first, the goals, how we're going to do it, how you structure it, what you need to have in place. So I'm not going to read this question again, but I'm looking for a paper, an essay, 4 to 6 pages, right? With your citations that should be about 1,500 words. If you go over the page count. I don't really care. I'm more concerned about the word count. And again, when you're doing it, you're writing your essay, if you want to just check the word count, I would write your essay without putting in any citations first and see what it is. And then you'll know how many words you have. However, I don't count the citations or quotes or evidence as part of your word count. So that's why we say how many hundreds of words you should have in it versus how many pages, because you might have more pages because you've got more quotes that we don't count as part of your word count. Okay, so the goal is to demonstrate my understanding of the concept and ideas covered in understanding Canadian law, right? Step one, choose a topic. Choose one of the topics above. So you've all done that. You've all told me which topic you're doing for your CTA, so you have it. Congratulations, you passed step one. Step two is the research. Gather your information on your topic. You want 3 sources minimum. You want to find 1 to 2 case studies that involve your topic and create an additive bibliography to create your statement. So that just means that when you're gathering your information, you need to find 3 resources. So again, I'm not saying go find 3 of the largest textbooks on constitutional law and read them. I am saying see if you can find articles that deal with it. You can see if you can find periodicals. You can use some web pages on the web as long as they're historically accurate. You can use an interview if what you're saying needs an interview. You can gather so much different types of information, but it all has to be on your topic and it all has to be not based in fiction, right? So it's got to be just research notes to gather about specific things. So if it's about the Young Criminal Justice Act, you need to sort of have information about what it is. You have some information about how many kids go to jail. You need to hear why some people think you shouldn't ever use it for kids and why some people should. So you want to have a lot of information so you can make your argument. When I say find 1 or 2 case studies that involve your topic, the case studies are good because 1, we're studying law, and 2, case studies kind of are a good way to sort of show how they interpret it, right? So I've got a case study in which judges felt, even though a young offender committed a heinous act, they should not be tried in an adult court for these reasons. That's information you could use in your essay as here's some more evidence of a judge agreeing with me. Additive bibliography and create your statement. It simply means you got to tell me why you chose those resources. What's the importance of them? If you can't explain to me why those resources are needed for your essay, then that's a problem. That means the reason you haven't investigated the purpose of your essay, right? So make sure that when you do additive bibliography, you are literally saying, I think these are the reasons why I'm going to use these pieces of information, and this is the why I'm doing it. This statement is you developing it on your own. I can be here to help, but you have to do a statement. It's the last sentence in your opening paragraph that usually explains what the focus of the essay is. If I were doing it, I would say, while freedom of expression is important, government should not ever allow the publication of offensive materials such as pornography under the cover of one of our most sacred freedoms, right? I'm telling you where my position is. I'm very, very clear about what I think about it is. I don't say I don't say we, I don't falter. I just state what the deal is, right? You know that, okay, well, it's going to show us that, well, he believes in fundamental freedom. It does not cover pornography or other offensive material. Okay, so that's the kind of thing I want to see before you even start your outline, because I want to see, okay, I know what question you're asking, because if you know what question you're asking, you know how to structure your essay. Okay, so I could go through each one of these things. I'm going to go through the first one, because what I did was I made basically outlines for every possible question that's there. I think I may be missing one, but you can see the pattern that's evolving, right? So first paragraph is always the introduction. A general topic, discuss the topic in most general terms. So if it was about freedom of speech, you might start off a quote with like, I don't know what pornography is, but I know when I see it. I don't know what things are offensive, what's obscene material, but I know what I see it. That was from a famous individual who talked about the idea of being able to determine things that are offensive enough that they are not covered by the fundamental freedoms, right? So I talked about the concept of this is an idea that we've always talked about. When we had, or I even started by saying, you know, freedoms are an essential part of democracy, but they cannot be absolute. Every freedom must have limits, right? I'm talking about it in very general terms, right? Because you don't know which freedom I'm talking about. I'm saying freedoms are great, but they must have limits. And then I could do it, or I could do the other aspect and say, there are things in the world that are offensive to many and obscene to a lot. However, in a free democratic society, we must look past our initial reaction in order to be able to defend one of the most sacred freedoms found in Canada. That is the freedom of expression, right? So again, I talk about things that are very general and I will it down. So you discuss it in the most general terms, then you in your same paragraph, you discuss or identify the 3 reasons why you're correct, and then you repeat the statement. Specifically the statement, last sentence, in your opening paragraph, it should be clear to me your position on this, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. All right, now, like I said, you're going to identify 3 reasons, right? First, second, and third. It doesn't mean that the third reason isn't strong. It just means that the other 2 have more evidence or are better at identifying the core of the question. When you're doing this, remember you are writing your essay like it's an action movie, like it's a James Bond flick. You start off with kind of in the 3 body paragraphs, you start off with sort of an explosion or a chase sequence, something that gets people's attention, a strong point. And then the 3rd paragraph, you are doing what's called an exposition dump, which means you're kind of in your play or in your story, you might have to explain certain concepts to the audience because they won't know what's going on. And sometimes you try to do it by showing it versus saying it. But sometimes you just have to the characters just basically spell out what's going on. That's not, that's the weaker part of the movie. And then the last part of the video, let's say James, because he died today, or one of the guys played James Bond died, yesterday. The last half an hour to a movie is always go, 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 because we want to end strong. Same thing happens with an essay. Get their attention, kind of give me some stuff that's not as relevant, but still makes a point. Finish with a strong ending. That's how it should be done. All right, so this is for question 1. And the question 1 was about should a youth indictable offenses. So I said here, identify the issue, right? So explain the different types of offenses, indictable, summary, and hybrid, and why youth do not serve indictable offenses. Explain your second strongest reason for supporting the CTA statement. You state, which means state the reason and logic behind your reasoning. Quote evidence from sources and or case studies supporting your reason. Explain. Discuss why your quote supports the statement. State or statement at the beginning of the paragraph. So if I said, kids should not be tried in adult court because it causes irreparable psychological damage to the youth, right? I would make a statement explaining why maybe the idea is I'm making the argument that youth, our brains are still changing and evolving, and they don't really have full control or development of the executive functioning. And then putting a child in an adult situation could make that situation worse, where the kid isn't taught right from wrong, but again sees a society or a group, a community that acts in ways that are not good, and those things become internalized, and the kid goes up and does it, right? Then maybe I find a quote from a therapist or a psychologist that talks about the reason that we have youth crimes is because the brain of teenagers is still in the process of growing, right? The argument they make, biologists, I guess, psychologists, they say that basically your brain is still developing your executive functioning, right? It still hasn't finished cooking. Your brain finishes right when you're on 25, technically, right? Maybe, like as in parts all firing, things all supposed to be working in order if you're, on the average human being, which means that you're going to do things at 16 that you wouldn't do when you're 25, right? maybe you go in the back over there behind the garbage thing and pick up things and throw each other's face. It's funny. When you're 25, it's like, oh my God, that could have been, what were we thinking? Because your executive function doesn't kick in until later, right? Or it takes time to develop. It could be fresh for some kids, could be there with other kids, who knows? But that would be a reason that you would make as evidence and then you explain why that evidence backs up what you're saying is, well, this is the way kids shouldn't go to adult court. They can't determine right from wrong right now. Youth court takes it into account and says this correctly. So you do that for your second strongest reason, you do it for your weakest reason, and you do it for your strongest reason. Again, same idea. You make your statement, you explain it clearly. Don't use I or any sort of personal pronouns. You are affirmative, like you're speaking the truth. You provide some evidence, either a case study or whatever evidence you gathered for your article, and then you explain what it is. Then you go to your conclusion, and you apply this to the real world. Why is it a good idea to, if this is that we can't let kids go to adult thing because they're still growing, then you apply it to the real world that, we're trying to get people away from being part of the criminal justice system, and the earlier we institute them, the more likely they may return. So let's try other things to keep them out of it so they're not people who constantly cycle through it. Right? That's the real world thing. I've done that for the other questions. I can go through each one, but it doesn't make sense because it's kind of all the same subject, right? The second paragraph always explains the concept, what it is, and then you go into your second, third, and fourth. You go to your second strongest reason, weakest reason, and strongest reason. But it's the same structure over and over and over again for all 4 questions. Okay, so which one you do, you have a basic structure what we're looking for. When you're doing your outline, please point from notes. If you give me an outline that looks like a paragraph, I will look at you and say, do this again. It takes me way too long to sift through a paragraph to determine ideas. I just want to be able to look at it and say, Nate, this is awesome. Your third reason seems a little weak. Can we talk about that? What did you mean to say? Oh, you mean to say this? Try this. Okay, good. Nate knows what to do. All right, I can write the essay. If it's in point from notes, it's fast for me to determine if the idea is okay. If it's in a paragraph, I start and my brain starts processing grammar and spelling, and do I understand? And then all of a sudden I'm editing a rough draft versus checking your ideas for your outline. It's important. Outlines are part of point from notes. Your quotes are there that you want to use, right? You still include your quotes and your evidence because I need to see, hey, when you said that point, Ryan, that quote doesn't really match up. I don't explain why that evidence supports that idea, right? Because you need, what you're looking for is someone outside of you saying, hey, when you wrote this, did you mean this? Because I don't see it. So you can say, oh yeah, sorry, I chose the wrong quote. Awesome, move on to the next, choose a better quote. Or someone saying, this is great, you can move on now. You can focus on creating an essay. So make sure your outlines are point from notes and they have the quotes that you plan to use in your essay there, right? So I can determine whether or not the quote you chose supports your idea or your statement. If it doesn't, the entire paragraph falls apart, right? Because you haven't proven anything, okay? All right, so that's for part 1. Part 2, the goal is to demonstrate your thinking and inquiry skills based upon concepts and ideas presented in Understanding Canadian Law 11 Open. To communicate this information in a PowerPoint presentation that is clear, easy to understand, use proper legal terminology. So for this one, again, what is the section asking me to do, which is step 1? Choose one of the following questions, gather information needed to understand the question, and to create a thesis statement that demonstrates your answer to your question, which means, am I asking you to do the deep dive you do in an essay, but no, but you need to be able to have working knowledge to make a presentation. So if it's question number 1, why is it important that the Constitution be entrenched in law? I need to know what a Constitution is. I need to know what do I mean by the concept of entrenched in law. I need to know how a Constitution differs from statutory law. I need to understand the difficulty of changing a constitution, and I need to know the rationale between why you make the constitution so hard to change and adapt, right? Once I have that working knowledge, I can then do a presentation. And again, do your research. If you found an article that deals with it or deals with the issue, I'm not saying throw away the article. I'm saying you have to be well-read enough to do it. If you get it from your textbook, that's awesome. If you get it from a textbook and something you saw that is, again, considered functionally right and evidence, great. If you went in and just did a little research and got a couple articles, to sort of, hey, I think I know what I want to do my presentation on, that's good too, but you need to have a direction of how you're going to answer the question. Okay. Research, finally, is 2 sources that deal with the topic of your chosen question. So this, your textbook is always a topic is what you could use. I would suggest you look in your textbook for it, and something else. Make a series of notes that will answer the questions. Organize the research and create the following structure. Here's a statement. What are you going to prove in your essay or video presentation? Define, explain the meaning of your question. Evidence, create 3 points, pieces of evidence to prove your thesis statement. In conclusion, explain how you proved your thesis statement. So that's how you would gather your research so you can say, okay, I think these are the reasons why I'm right. And you have a good understanding of how you're going to present your argument in your video. The outline is as follows. Slide 1 is MLA format telepage. Slide 2 is interesting your topic. Slide 3 is your thesis statement. Slide 4 is evidence 1 statement, explain and identify. Your proof is a quote to support or, again, deep dive information that from your textbook. Connect why your proof supports evidence 1 statement, and you do that for evidence 2 and evidence 3. Each time you make a statement about why you think this is right, you've got to be able to explain to me why, right? It should be a traditional law because constitutions should be difficult to change, right? And your argument would be you read something that statutory law can be changed at the whim of a government that changes constantly. So if that's the case, if a government decides to curtail rights, they can simply just wait to get it done and do it when they're in power, versus establishing a set of rules and values that are there irregardless of the government, right? So even if you have an oppressive government, our government is fraught with oppression, there are all these other rules that are here that are well-defined that people can say, you can't do that. You violate this rule of our country. And if you choose to do that, then what you're saying is you don't believe in our country, and therefore we can now possibly remove it with someone who's going to follow the supreme law of the land. Okay? So that's the kind of thing you have to sort of think about when you're sort of creating this PowerPoint presentation. Slide 13 is your conclusion. And again, always apply your conclusion to something outside of your presentation, right? The concept of entrenching the Constitution is a way to establish basic rules. And maybe you say, this is why it's not only important in countries, it should be done internationally. The UN should have a charter of rights and freedoms that are entrenched. So when countries do not follow it, there is a procedure in order to get them back into line or to encourage them to abandon their oppressive systems and move to these more progressive ones. So that's what the structure is for the presentation. Now, before I end the share, anyone have any questions about either task? One is an essay, one is a 2 to 5 minute presentation. If you don't understand or are confused, remember, you can always book a time with me at 9 a.m. So that's when homework hours from 9 a.m. to 9:45. But you need to book it ahead and tell me you're coming in. You just can't show up that day and say, I want a homework hub. It doesn't work that way. So you just send me a message, and when I get the message, I have to confirm with you. All right, so have some sweet message at like 11 p.m. at night, I'd like to come in for a homework hub. I'm sleeping, I can't confirm it. Right? If you send me a message 3:30, yes. If you send me a message at 6, yeah, I'm supposed to, yeah, I can accept it up until 6. Okay. Yeah. After that, I can. Right? Any other questions? Okay, so you're either working on this. If you haven't finished your last assignment, your sentencing assignment, that should be submitted in. You can submit it in by the 9th. I just think it's probably easier to get that out of the way than juggle 3 things at the same time. Okay, so you can use the rest of this period to start your structure for your outline. If you want me to check your outline, get it back to you before the weekend, so you can maybe send your rough draft. I can look at it before the weekend. You should do it by either today or tomorrow, the latest. If it's Thursday, give me an outline. I'll take a look at it, but that's as far as I'm able to go with feedback because I will not be able to give people the detailed feedback they need if I get everyone handing in their rough drafts on Friday at 2:30. Okay? All right.